Hey guys, welcome back. Week 5's in the books. Week 6 coming up. Just like the NFL, we decided to throw the Cowboys in your face, so we're joined with a DeMarco Murray jersey. We got a lot of trades, really weird power rankings, and some interesting matchups this we could talk about.
Yeah, so let's get right into the news. So it was a busy news week. So we'll start with the first trade that went down. That was between Evan and James. Evan received Marvin Jones, Noah Brown, and a third. James got Devonta Parker and another third.
I think that's a decent trade. Parker had a couple solid weeks. I believe he started out on the Cranberries, then traded to Evan, then Evan flipped him for Noah Brown and Marvin Jones. I think Marvin Jones
He had a big week.
A big week. Noah Brown, it's kind of who's Cooper Rush's favorite over in Dallas. He had a couple solid weeks, so we'll see. I think that's a pretty even trade, though.
Yeah, Devonta Parker put up another goose egg, his second 0 on the year. Didn't even get targeted this week in a game they won, like, something, 19-0, something like that.
You could also attribute that to maybe rookie quarterback or running the ball a lot to help the game plan.
Yeah, I think I lean towards Evan just for getting the two assets, and I don't know if Devonta Parker's that much better than both of them, and it's also not like he's much younger, 29 compared to like 31 or 2 for Marvin Jones. So kind of just a whatever move. Next up, we have Cherry and James. Cherry received Austin Hooper and Chase Claypool, and James received Gerald Everett and a 2024 third.
I am pretty high on Everett. I think he started the year pretty solid. He's been doing pretty decent since then. I think it's a good move to upgrade tight end. As for Claypool, he's been kind of... I think he did 10 points this week, but he seems to be kind of the odd man out when it comes to Pickens and Deontay in front of him. And who was the other person in that trade?
Austin Hooper.
I don't think really did anything this year until this week, or if he did do something, it was very minimal. So I kind of lean James there just because I used to have Everett, and I like him this year in the Chargers offense. But again, I think it's another pretty fair trade.
Yeah, Everett did have a down week this week, only caught one ball for 2 yards, but before that, he was basically averaging like 12, 13 points a game. Claypool, on the other hand, is averaging 6 this year. I don't think Claypool is very good, and like you said, kind of the odd man out. I don't know how much longer he'll be kind of that guy in Pittsburgh. It'll be interesting to see. He did have a decent week this week with Pickett, so we'll see if they're kind of like they build a relationship and get going.
And I'm sure Pat F being out, if he left the game this week, probably going to miss next week. So maybe with that, he'll get a little bit of a boost there.
But yeah, I definitely lean James with this. I think Everett adds a lot to that tight end room, even though maybe not necessarily didn't happen in this first week having him. And I think Cherry just loses some value here, but he's tanking very hard, so that makes sense on why he's giving away good players for really nothing in return. The next trade you were part of, you got Mostert and a third for James getting McCole Hardman.
I obviously lean towards me because it's me, but Mostert looked really good, but you also can never predict the Dolphins having to go to their third string, 7th round rookie quarterback, which really helped Mostert this week. But I thought Mostert had been pretty solid this year. He kind of really established himself as the running back 1 in the Mike McDaniel system. And Hardman, every week I'm kind of like, is this the week where he gets that like 75-yard touchdown? Hasn't happened. Yes, he's only 24, so I did get older, which might not be the best thing, but I think that I got a player that I can start and be like, hey, I know he's not going to only score 2 points.
Yeah, when I saw this trade go through, I was confused to say the least. I thought if someone was going to go for Mostert, it might be one of those like competing teams that needs a little bit of RB help right now, and getting him. And then I don't know why James traded Mostert and a third for Hardman. I think Hardman has basically only proved in his 4-year career that he's bad, and he gave away a player that's averaging like 10 points and a pick. Granted, it's a third, doesn't really move the needle a ton. But yeah, I definitely like this for you. But it also was weird, like you said, you're getting a 30-year-old running back that might not have a job next year with such a strong running back class coming in, but helps you this year. We'll see what happens with that in the future. Also, in the big waiver news of the week, Trevor won the Mike Boone sweepstakes. He put up 11 points this week. Seems to kind of be in like that 50-50 split there, so another option for Trevor.
Yeah.
Then Trevor and Evan traded. Trevor got Noah Brown and 8 fab for Albert O, who has not been playing as much this year. I think a lot of people expected the big breakout from the younger tight end, but hasn't really come true this year. Could be due to the Broncos' bad offense, but
just being bad.
Yeah, that trade just kind of feels like
this is nothing burger.
Yeah, whatever at this point. And then Zach and Steve made a trade. Zach received Jared Goff and a 2025 second. Steve received Russell Wilson and 75 fab.
I don't know. Wilson has looked cooked this year. I think despite how awful he did, I think he still got like 17 points last week, which I don't know how. Like, they did fuck all. But yes, Goff had a pretty bad week against New England, but he was also missing a lot of weapons on offense. I don't know. I get Steve needs a quarterback because both Goff and Carr have buys this week. I'd maybe even look to the waiver wire for that. I don't know if this is necessarily a move that I like. Again, Wilson hasn't looked good. Goff has been like a top 10 QB in fantasy this year. You traded QB 6 this year and a second for QB 17 and FAB, which I think is just a joke in trades, honestly.
Yeah, Steve's kind of been all over the place with QBs this year, and I think he's just kind of like spiraling. He traded Kyler, who's averaging 19.8 points per game, and Goff, who's averaging 18.9 points per game, for Carr, who's averaging 16.4, and Russ for 14.9. So we basically just lost like 5 points per game in each of those trades. Not necessarily what you do when you're trying to compete.
I get it. You need a quarterback this week. You didn't have one. Fine. What's wrong with like? You can't say what's wrong, but like PJ Walker is going to be coming in for Carolina. I don't think he's going to be like a hot sweepstakes, but it's a guy you can just play, get you going. Or if Teddy Bridgewater plays and is available, I feel like with the quarterback, especially in a one quarterback league like this, there's always going to be a starter on the waivers, or usually.
Yeah. Yeah. We have Cooper Rush, PJ Walker, Skylar Thompson. If Teddy's back, and if Dak comes back this week, which was kind of his projected time to come back, there might only be PJ Walker, which, yeah, who knows? I still think it's a little overreaction. Why not just trade like a 3rd-round pick or a 2nd-round pick for like a lower-end QB, like just Jacoby to fill in
Brissett
for the week,
or something like that.
Yeah, get Jacoby for a 3rd, play him this 1 week, and then just kind of move on with it. Be fine.
Because honestly, like, Goff might be better than Carr. Maybe. At least for this season, I should say.
Yeah, it's early, but we'll see. Let's talk about some injuries now.
All right, so there were quite a few injuries. Olave got knocked out on a scary play that resulted in a touchdown, but definitely did not stay in that game. concerning for the Saints offense a little bit. Maybe kind of helps your team if he has to miss and Michael Thomas comes back this week.
I think he's projected to come back this week. Olave hopefully only misses 1 week. If that, we'll see with the concussion protocol. It did look pretty banged up, though, walking off the field.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's another disappointment for another rookie receiver that was playing really well.
Also, Pat F. got a concussion. He missed the remainder of the game against Buffalo and is looking like he's going to miss next Sunday.
Yeah, another concussion for Ethan's team.
Just not looking great.
Nah, really unlucky so far season for him.
Darren Waller left last night's game against the Chiefs with a hamstring injury, so we don't really have a word on if it's going to affect him in the future.
Yeah, don't really know what the timetable is for him. Could be back next week. Could miss a couple. Gotta wait and see on that one.
Damien Harris will miss a few games with a hamstring injury as well. So if you have Ramondre Stevenson, don't trade him for DJ Chark. T. Higgins also had an ankle injury.
He that was interesting. He was listed as active, played like half of a drive, and then just kind of sat out the rest of the game.
Yeah. I feel like he finds a new way to get hurt every week.
Yeah, I think he got hurt. I heard he got hurt in the last game. Logged some limiteds. It's just weird.
Didn't he get like a concussion last game?
No, that was his ankle.
That was his ankle? Okay.
Concussion was a few games ago.
Okay. And then Drake London and Saquon Barkley, they missed about a drive or two in their games. Finished the games, so maybe something to monitor as the week goes on.
Yeah, might log a few limited practices. Kind of got to see what the word is. Both look okay, good to go, which is good. Don't need another one of those rookie receivers going down. That would be like 4 of the 5 taken in the first round if London was to get hurt. And then, yeah, obviously Saquon for me. He's having a great year. Don't want to see anything happen to him. Huge part of that Giants offense. Good to see that they were able to finish the game, and hopefully they don't have to miss time.
Absolutely. I think that pretty much wraps up injuries.
Let's see these power rankings because they are
weird.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to leave that here.
Power rankings. Let's just go. 12, we got Matt. He is 2-3. He's lost 2 weeks in a row by 100 points. He has 100 points scored less than the second to last. Those 2 wins were fun while they lasted, but things are not looking good.
No, I'd have to agree there. Mainly because he lost to 100 to me.
Yeah. Rough times.
Yeah.
Number 11, I have Cherry. He's only put up 76 this week. Has had a few bad weeks in a row after actually he had a really good week last week. Kind of forgot about that. He seemed to have either like a solid week or just a horrible week.
Yeah.
He is going into next week. Him and Matt will play each other. A pretty bad matchup. We'll talk about that later. Losing Harris hurts him, but also helps him because he's trying to lose. Team kind of underperformed. The bright spot here is Walker. With Penny out for the season, he's going to step into a bigger role, and he looked really good in those few carries he had. I actually didn't really see much of them. I know he had a big run. I don't know how the others looked, but 8 carries for 88 yards and a touchdown. Not a bad stat line in your first time with a serious workload.
Not at all, no.
Number 10, we have Ryan. Yourself moved up because you just had a dominant week, second most points scored in the league. Hall looks like a superstar on the Jets. He's getting used a ton. He did fall short on the 1 yard line twice, which could have just made his week even better. Seems to be a big part of this Jets offense going forward. Then, yeah, Gabe Davis, kind of touched on this last week. He's kind of that boomer bust TD dependent guy, but those booms are going to look amazing.
Oh, yeah, 98 yards. Can't complain there.
3 catches, 171 yards, 2 TDs. Don't know if I see that happening every week.
I don't think so.
But if you're like TD dependent kind of guy, boomer bust, great team to be on with the Bills and Josh Allen to get those touchdowns because they're scoring a ton. And yeah, kind of just everything went right for you this week.
Even had Taysom Hill get 35 on the bench.
Yeah, we'll see if this becomes a trend or if this is just a one-time off thing.
I mean, the biggest thing I wanted was just to see improvement throughout the year, and I had kind of been sitting around 100 points, but everything clicked this week. I got 160. So people would be like, yeah, you got to win, but it was against Matt. But it's like, no, I only lose to one other team this week if I play them. So it's not. I can't say like, oh, I got to win, but I beat Matt, 72-60.
Yeah. I don't think 160 is going to be your norm.
No, not
but
at all.
If you could get up from like that 90 to 100 points per game to more like
110, 120.
Yeah, 115-ish, could definitely see some more wins in your future.
Like I said, just want to see improvement, and this week was a huge step in that direction.
Basically, I think those 3 are kind of in a tier and probably will be for basically the whole year, just fighting amongst themselves for who's 10, 11, and 12. Maybe if one of those teams gets hot, they move up a little bit. But then basically from here all the way to 2, tough to rank. For my number 9, I have Ethan. Ethan has had a lot of good weeks. He's one of the higher scorers consistently. Just he gets so unlucky. He has the most points against by like 50, 60. Everybody he plays, he talked about it in his statement this week, puts up 140 at least. He's still putting up pretty good points for on his own end, just super unlucky to start the year.
I agree with you for the first 3. I had Ethan at 7 for the main reason that he's not playing bad. It's just his opponents are just playing better.
Yeah, I do dock him a little bit for losing Javonte, Dotson, Olave, Pat F. When you take all those guys out of the equation and are looking at his team, it doesn't look great to compete for next week or however many weeks they're out. Still puts together a formidable lineup, but it's lacks depth and relying on some not super like solid pieces to have those solid games if he wants to win.
Yeah, that's fair.
Number 8, I have Zach. Zach, I think, has, by his own statement, had a very disappointing year. He's 2-3, just came up short. A Devontae Adams bobble basically cost him his matchup. I think if you're looking at this team, McCaffrey looking pretty good throughout this year. Adams, with a down week in there, has been pretty consistent. I think the big negatives of this team, Elijah Moore has got nothing going this year, hasn't scored more than 10 points in a game. And Najee also hasn't looked great. He looks pretty slow out there, bad yards per carry. Last game, he even was losing some snaps to Jalen Warren. Granted, it was a blowout, so kind of resting him, but they did keep the rest of their first-team offense out there. So could kind of be a sign of things to come. Still think he's a really good team, just has not been playing up to his standards.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I actually had Zach at 9. So not too far off there.
Speaking of who he was just playing, I have Evan at 7. He's also 2-3. He seems to do pretty solid each week. He has a lot of talented players on this team, and it seems like each week 1 or 2 of them goes for 20. Probably 1 or 2 of them only goes for 5 to 7. I think he's in there with the contenders. He's currently out of the playoffs in their division, but he has the same record as Trevor, Zach, all sitting at 2-3. He just has the least points for so far. I think this He's definitely contending and definitely could get in the playoffs. I think just need to have some more solid weeks and stop being so unlucky. That's
Yeah, his luck really hasn't been there. I had him at 8, so I think we kind of flipped those three a little bit. But yeah, he does have this pretty solid team, and he's in this fight. Getting a win against Zach is a huge step in that process of trying to make it to your first playoffs.
yeah, big division win.
And he plays Zach twice more, so maybe he's probably gonna have to do it again if he wants to see that.
Yeah. For number 6, I have myself. I'm sitting at 3-2. I thought I had a solid week. I basically put up 120 points. Would have been good enough to beat a few teams this week. Not my opponent. Saquon, obviously, has been Saquon. He's averaging like 20 a game. Has just looked really good throughout the season. And then Goddard also looked really good at tight end. I think the big bright spot here is Ramondre with the Harris injury. We'll get a few more touches, could hopefully help this team. And then the big negative is kind of Chase Edmonds. It's definitely Mostert's offense. And then Edmonds didn't look good in the start of that game, and then went to Gaskin. We'll see if they keep going to Gaskin and if Edmonds is more phased out, or if Edmonds kind of gets that like pass catching role, second, like 60-40, 55-45 split. And if not, who am I going to kind of play in that other flex if Thomas and Swift and Burks are all still out?
Yeah. I also had you at 6. Edmonds getting 0.1 definitely did not help you. You probably will get Michael Thomas back this week. I don't think your team is terrible. I think that you just had a bad week. You'll be back. And I think that you're definitely one of the, I'll say, better positioned teams coming into as the season kind of gets halfway through, looking at playoff pictures and stuff.
Yeah, I am also, like I said, kind of in that same spot as Evan, but I am 3-2. But the rest of my division is 3-2, and I'm in 4th place in the division, out by points. I'm out by 40. Evan's out by like 25. So
yeah, I mean, it'll definitely see how it plays out towards the end of the year.
5, I have James. He got the big win versus Trevor this week. Fournette looked really good again. He's kind of been an absolute workhorse this year. He did have one dud game, but he's constantly been getting like high teens, and then this week out of nowhere dropped 35, which I think is huge for him. I think the big issue here, which we talked about, but then also didn't talk about on the injuries, was Rashad Penny is out for the season.
Oh yeah, we forgot that.
We forgot that one, but then I also talked about him being out for the season when I talked about Cherry with Walker. So he did break his leg, which was probably the biggest injury news.
Yeah, probably should have addressed that, but whatever.
I have him at 5. He's 3-2. I think the issue here is he is relying a lot on like rookies to keep producing, and that's always kind of iffy with their first season until we kind of get a bigger picture. We're starting to see a clearer picture. Dobbs is looking okay. London has looked good and then had 2 kind of down weeks. Pickens is playing well. I think the big positive here is Damien Pierce. He's looked really strong, and the RBs look good. I just think he has a lot of kind of like iffy pieces moving forward that aren't going to like constantly produce at a super high level, and I think that could kind of see some big ups and downs from this team.
Yeah, I had James at 3 solely for the fact that he did beat Trevor, and Trevor was always ranked pretty high here. And I actually had Trevor ranked at 5. So, again, I just kind of throw these together with a little recency bias. Like, hey, this person beat them, we'll move them up. So, but yeah, I do think we talked about this last week. I want to see some consistency from James. Pretty good week this week, but now with the bye weeks kicking in and some injuries, like who's going to take over that role for Penny on his team, we'll have to see moving forward.
Yeah, coming in at 4, that's where I have Trevor slated. He is 2-3, but he does have the second most points scored in the league. Had a down week this week. I just like this team's talent way too much. He did this without Taylor, who arguably is his best player. Him and Henry. Henry's been looking good. Mixon's been getting opportunities, just hasn't been super efficient with them. DK had a big week. Waller putting up 0 in his tight end position. Not great, and with the injury, but Ingram's looked solid, who's his other option. Again, on the bench, Jacoby Myers looked good. Nico Collins putting up 10. Mike Boone putting up 11 and a half. A.J. Brown and Christian Kirk have had 2 kind of down weeks in a row, but I'm sure that they'll kind of turn things around. And I still think Trevor's a really good team, as you could tell by his points scored. So
Yeah, I think Trevor's team is good. I just look at a 2-3 record, who he lost to, say, okay, you lose to Cherry James. I'm not saying that James's team is anything, bad. Cherry's team isn't great. It was hard to keep him top 3 this week, so I put him at 5.
yes, for number 3, I do have Steve. He's sitting at 3-2. Just took me down this week. He has third most points scored in our division. I think he's like kind of middle of the pack in the entire league at like 6-ish. He put up 130 last week. Travis Kelce is just ridiculous. I'm pretty sure he's probably the best fantasy asset just out there, and probably has been for the past 7 years. Just providing like wide receiver 1 numbers that you got to put in your tight end position is just such a big boost to any fantasy team. And then, Dalvin obviously has been playing pretty well recently. To be fair, his team, besides those 2, they combined for 60-ish of his points. So that means his other 7 starters also only combined for like 60, 70. And then Jeff Wilson had a really good game too, putting up 20. It'll be interesting if he keeps this role. Tevin Coleman got involved a little bit more, and when Elijah Mitchell comes back, I think that'll be kind of the big question mark with this team.
Absolutely, yeah. I would say that this team is probably one of the more inconsistent teams, and especially if it's going to be top 3. I can see a lot of things working out. I can see a lot of things not working out. After a hot start, Clyde seems to have kind of cooled down this week. Kelce only had 25 yards, but he had 4 touchdowns, which, is absolutely absurd.
Yeah, seeing all the stats on Twitter is always funny. He has as many touchdowns in that game as Justin Fields has all year. As many touchdowns as Hurts has passing touchdowns all year. Like, just ridiculous game from him.
Absolutely. I think Steve, again, is another team in a good position to make the playoffs. It's going to be, is the team going to stay consistent through this stretch? Then I think we'll get a good idea of who is, the real and who is frauds. But within these next 3 or 4 weeks,
Yeah.
you're really going to see, okay, who can survive the bye weeks or injuries and who could not.
Yeah, I do definitely agree with that. I think I don't know why I said I think, because I just have Griff at number 2.
I also do as well.
He is 4-1, put up a big week, 151 points. He was carried, obviously, by Josh Allen, Justin Jefferson, Mark Andrews, Kamara. Rest of his team did all right. Pollard had a big touchdown run, which kind of saved his week. This was also the first week we kind of saw Mooney not... he did all right, actually. 2 catches for 52 yards. Kind of got involved there. I think things are looking up for him. It is sad to say that Greg Dortch has sadly passed away. It was a fun 3-4 weeks.
He didn't
Griff.
actually die. He's just probably not fantasy relevant.
Yeah, we'll probably see him on the waivers in a few weeks and then hear from him again in 4 years, and then we'll be like, hey, remember the Greg Dortch 3 weeks? That's always fun from Griff. But he's got arguably the QB1, arguably the wide receiver 1, locked in, basically tight end 2 to tight end 1. Those are good enough to carry him for a lot of weeks. And as long as those other guys who are kind of putting up like 5 to 10 right now, if they could consistently put up 10, I think, this is a really good team. And he has a 2-game lead on his division right now. So
yeah, I mean, I think he's the only 4-1 team in the division, correct? So Not much else to say. His team's been playing really well. Yeah, obviously, Josh Allen is good. So is Justin Jefferson. Maybe get a little more consistency from the running backs. That would definitely boost his team a long way. But they're in a really good spot right now. I don't think you can complain if you're there.
Yeah, then obviously number one we have Jasmus, 5-0, has like 100 more points scored than whoever's in second. Highest scorer again this week, Josh Jacobs, Eckler. We know the deal. His team's really good.
Yeah, his team's good. We get it.
It'll be interesting to see who's the first team to beat him. Does have some buys this week. Would be a huge one for Zach, which we'll then talk about in
matchup previews
coming up right now.
And we're back with matchup previews. Definitely not recording this a second time because the camera stopped recording for some reason.
This is indeed the first time.
Don't fact check that. So we have a new format coming in for matchup previews this week. Before Adam talks about that, we're going to go discuss last week. Adam, you went 4-2. I went 3-3. Your all-time record is 20-10. So you got about 2 right for every one you get wrong. I'm sitting at 16-14, so I'm very close to 500%. So that can all change, though, with the new format, which Adam will explain now.
So basically, when I looked at like kind of what we had been doing, each time we'd be like, I agree, I'm taking this team too. I agree, I'm taking this team too. Agreeing with like 5, even 6 picks at the same time. So what's the fun in agreeing? So this time we set up a little draft beforehand. We each picked which matchup we wanted first. Ryan had the first pick this week because he had the worst week last week, and that's kind of how we'll keep it going in the future. You have the worst week, you get the first pick. So he picked the matchup that he was most confident in on who would be the winner. Then I got a pick. We went back and forth. Whoever he picks, I have to take the opposite, so we're always going against each other. If we both go 3-3 with our picks, obviously we'll have the same record, but if he has like a 1-2 week and I go 3-0, huge discrepancy there. We'll make it a little bit more fun. Also, just those 50-50 matchups. Yeah, maybe I would lean this way, but I could see this team, so let me argue some of their points type of thing. I think it'll be a good, more fun improvement to the matchups.
Absolutely. So I had the first pick this week. I went with the Tank Bowl, the Bison versus the Steamrollers. I do like Higgins if he plays, which is yet to be seen. He was kind of like a distraction, as I think you said in power rankings. And definitely not the first time we did this. I also like Gallup versus Philadelphia, and I do like James Robinson versus Indianapolis. Could be a good game to bounce back after a few not-so-great games. I really don't like Josh Palmer versus Denver or Hollywood Brown versus Seattle. Despite not liking Hollywood, got to go with Cherry here. He might not have looked great, but Matt has looked worse.
Yeah, Matt's looked really bad these past 2 weeks. Won't have Amon-Ra this week because he is on bye. That means Cherry also won't have Jamal Williams, who's been pretty good for him. If I had to pick, I would have took Cherry. Matt's put up like 60 to 50 points these past 2 weeks. Cherry hasn't looked great, but he's at least putting up like 75.
Yeah.
Matt has shown anyone can win at any time. Could see a win here. Don't think it's super likely, though. I think you're probably going to be right on this one.
Especially with Amon-Ra, I just had to take it.
The first matchup that I chose, I took the James versus Griff matchup.
So Crusade versus Devil Rays, the big one to watch here. Allen versus Mahomes. Very surprised it wasn't a primetime game. We knew it was going to be a Thursday night because this is actually a good game, or looks like a good game. But I was surprised it wasn't Sunday or Monday night. But I guess we're all fine watching the Broncos on primetime again. I do like Allen versus the Chiefs, and I don't like Mahomes versus the Bills. I don't think Mahomes is going to do terrible. The Bills have a really good defense. The Chiefs do not, so that's why I like Allen. Also like Fournette versus Pittsburgh and Justin Jefferson to stay hot versus Miami. And another player I don't like is McCole Hardman in general. That's why I traded him away. As a man who has started McCole Hardman in the past, it's rough. Adam, who are you taking in this one?
I'm going to lean Griff here. I think he has this one. Looks pretty good for him. James obviously has the big thing here was he has Pierce on a bye, Cooks on a bye, Renfro on a guy, but on a bye, not on a guy.
Hey, yo.
I think those three are usually starters on this team. Hurts that he's going to be missing them. Why he has to go to the McCole Hardmans and Hendersons, and I think because of those buys weakening this team, Griff doesn't really have any buys this week, so I'm gonna go with Griff to get this win, go to 5-1.
I also, if I had the choice, would have taken Griff this week. I'm stuck with James. I can see James winning. Doesn't seem as likely with his buys and injuries, but you never know. Maybe this is finally the week that McCole decides to score more than 2 points. So the next matchup that I picked was Jasmus versus Zach. Did not have a matchup for this one. Surprisingly, I like Fields this week against Washington. He's put up 17 last week. Maybe he can kind of continue that. Maybe get like the 17 to 22 range against a weaker defense. Also, really like Mike Evans versus Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh allowed 171 yards and 3 touchdowns to Gabe Davis, and I think Mike Evans is better than Gabe Davis. So we'll see what he can do there. What I don't like, though, a lot of Zach's matchups are not favorable. I don't think they're going to do terrible, just tougher than how Jasmus' matchups look, and for that reason, gotta ride with the undefeated team. I'm taking Jasmus.
Yeah, if I was going to take a team, it would probably be Jasmus. I think this is going to be really close, though, and deep down, I think I wanted to take Zach, so I'm fine backing him this week. I think this matchup, though, it's one of those ones that, like, we've kind of seen this in the past, too. It's almost too early to tell with some of these questionable players or people that have been missing weeks. It could go either way. If Keenan Allen doesn't play again, Bateman doesn't play again, Zach having Devontae Adams on bye, this could look pretty ugly for him. On the flip side, James Conner misses, if Tyreek Hill misses, or if he's playing with the third string QB again, doesn't have as good of a week, he could have to go pretty deep in his bench with Josh Jacobs on the bye too. If either of those happen, it could really swing who is likely to win this matchup. Hard to pick against Jasmus, but I think Zach could have a big bounce back this week after a few disappointing matchups. Come out, take down Jasmus, give him his first loss.
This was kind of a close matchup to take, especially for a round 2 pick, but I saw Jasmus was available. I said, I can't pass up that opportunity. I passed it up round 1. Let's just take it round 2. Like you said, a little questionable, but I'm confident in Jasmus this week.
With my second pick, I went with the Trevor versus Steve matchup.
So wide receiver U versus the Cape Cod Cranberries. The matchup to watch in this one is going to be the Ravens versus the Giants. Really like Lamar versus the Giants. The Giants have struggled to contain mobile QBs in the past and a little bit this year as well. But I do like Dalvin versus Miami and Aaron Jones versus the Jets. I do not like Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Kelsey versus Buffalo. In Kelsey's case, do I think he's going to do bad? No, I don't think he's going to get 4 touchdowns again. And I also am not the biggest fan of Pittman versus Jacksonville. Jacksonville's pass defense has been pretty good this year. So who do you take to win, Adam?
This is one I also see is really close. It is also interesting to see maybe Russ could possibly miss week 6, and then if Teddy also has to miss, Steve is still scrambling for a quarterback.
After that trade, too.
After the trade, who knows what happens. I think they think Russ is going to be ready to play. Who knows, though? Especially on a Monday night, you'd have to just try to get the backup and fill him in if you're going to rock with that, if he is out. Same thing, though, with Trevor, Jonathan Taylor. Will he play? Won't he play? Missed last week. I think it also kind of looks like he should be back for this week or could return. I think if he's out, it would swing towards Steve. I think if he's in, I like Trevor. I think he's going to play. Even if he doesn't, I'm going to rock with Trevor in this matchup.
All right, I would have also taken Trevor here. I don't hate having Steve. I think it's a decent team to have. The quarterback's going to be a big question this week. And I would like to see some of his guys be a little more consistent. I think it is going to be very close. I'm fine with the take. The last matchup I chose, I'm wearing the same shirt I wore last week to, give me some hope. The War Eagles versus the Gladiators. Matchup to watch. Jets versus Packers. I do like Rodgers versus the Jets and ETN versus Indianapolis, but I also like Mostert versus Minnesota, Gabe and Singletary versus Kansas City. Not the biggest fan of Chubb versus New England, but Chubb's been so good this year, maybe it doesn't matter who he plays. Also, not the biggest fan of Alec Pierce versus Jacksonville, as we just talked about. Pretty good pass defense. There is one thing, though. Teams that play Ethan, they score a lot of points. I'm taking myself in this one. I think we're going to stay hot. Maybe not 160 again, but maybe we can crack, the 130s. Have another big week. Got a lot of favorable matchups there, so I'll take myself this week. I'll feel confident in that.
I had this as almost like a true 50-50, which it says. I was really struggling debating who I'd take either way. I'm glad you got to take this one, so I just get a ride with the opposite. I might have leaned to you, but in my head I'm also like Ethan. Super tough to say. I think you have a lot of really good matchups. I think this is going to be really close. I think maybe Chase finally gets back on track, but against Lattimore, that'll be tough. I think it's also tough if Olave comes back. I think that could help Ethan a lot. Getting him in there would give him a big boost. Same thing with like a Pat F. It's really too close to tell, but I'm happy backing Ethan, and yeah, I could see this as like a matchup of the week.
Yeah, I could as well. And lastly, that means you took your own matchup. I did not have a matchup this week for Dragons versus Anteaters. I probably should have said that first. Don't really have a real life matchup to watch, but I do like Kyler versus a very poor Seattle defense and Melvin versus the Los Angeles Chargers. But I also like DJ Moore against the Rams, who really haven't looked like the Rams when it comes to pass defense. You're also going to see PJ Walker, who DJ Moore has a decent history with in the few games that Walker has started or played in. So hopefully that goes well. And I also like Kittle versus Atlanta, with Debo kind of being shut down versus Carolina. He had a decent game in Atlanta, almost more of like a breakout for the 2022 season. So maybe he continues that against another not great defense. Who I don't like, not the biggest fan of Miles Sanders versus Dallas or Mike Williams versus Denver. Denver, if they have one thing that's going right for them this year, it's their corners and safeties, or their secondary. So who do you take to win this one?
This is another really close one. I think I have some good matchups, but I think Evan has the more talent this week. I think if Michael Thomas ends up playing, and I could fit him in the lineup, and he's like 100% playing like a good portion of snaps, getting targets, even without Winston, I think he's going to put up decent points. If not, that second flex option is going to be tough. Do I ride with Chase Edmonds, who might get one carry? Do I go with like a Brian Robinson right off of like one outing? It's tough to say who I'm going to play there, and because of that, just the uncertainty there, I'm going to take Evan. We are both of the two teams that got caught by Steve on Sunday and Monday night. It'll be another big Monday night with him having Melvin Gordon and Judy, me having Cortland and Mike Williams, me having Cortland Sutton. He'll have 3, I'll have 1. It's going to all come down to Monday night likely. We both don't have the best track records. Evan did, though, hold it out last Monday, so I guess I'm going to ride with Evan.
All right, I actually took you in this. I thought it was very close and a very tough one for me to pick. I think you kind of have a bounce back week after not doing so great against Steve and Griffin. It's kind of like, hey, this is the Adam bounce back to prove he's not a fraud. So I'm fine having you. I do think it's going to be very close. And I guess I'm ready to throw, because that wraps up matchup previews, and we're going to head over to questions from the league. So hit it, Adam.
Nothing this time.
All right, maybe that bit's over. All right. All right, we're back. questions around the league. Adam, tell us our first question. We'll kick it off.
Ethan asked, how does he play better defense?
That I can't help you with. It's mainly just luck. I mean, playing Matt helps. Playing Cherry helps. Even playing me could help this week. So, we'll see.
He has played Matt, and Matt put up,
A lot.
I think 140.
Well,
I do think it's interesting. He has given up 721 points against. Next closest is Matt with 680. So he does have like a 40-point lead on the second place on the toughest schedule. I think it has just come down to being super unlucky, but to still be at 2-3 with a really unlucky schedule, I think is a positive.
It shows you how how good the team is.
Yeah, and I think probably can't stay this unlucky forever.
You got to think, right?
Hopefully.
Right?
Yeah. We will see. You could go.
So James had 2 questions for us. He first asked, who do you guys think gets pick 1-1? Obviously, you're hoping it's me.
Yeah,
I'm hoping it's not.
I'm not thinking it's going to be you.
I
kind of thought this whole year that it's going to come down to either Trevor getting it or Evan getting it via Matt's pick. And I've kind of had you kind of in that, like, pick 3 spot most of this year.
Yeah, I was always thinking, like, okay, it's going to be Matt's pick, so whoever owns it at the time right now, it's Evan. Could also see it being Cherry because Matt does have 1 game on him. And if they both lose out to end the year, Matt has pick 2.
They are playing each other this week.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Shit.
So I think we do think Cherry's going to win, but who knows? I think Cherry's going in this week mega hoping for a loss. And then tough to say. There's also the after this week, the week 7 matchup of you versus Matt, which is so many players on bye.
Yeah,
it's going to be
rough.
a bloodbath.
It's going to be who does better, Breece Hall or Amon-Ra.
Yeah, it's going to be ugly. It'll probably somehow be like 170 to 150.
Yeah.
Knowing how fantasy football works. But that would be another really important matchup where if Matt beats you, then it could kind of hold you back depending on how you do. I still think you'll win a few random games here and there, but that would be big for Cherry if he does win this one. And then obviously depending on how your team looks at the time, I think you and Cherry end the season against each other.
We do.
So that would be like, man, if Cherry beats you, he gets out of the, like, he might be holding the pick 1 spot, or like if you win that one and he loses that could like clinch it for him or something. So that'll be, I think, probably like kind of a big matchup towards the end of the year for the 101 sweepstakes. But I think it's either going to be Matt or Cherry are going to be 2 bottom teams come the end of the year.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think depending on if I get hit with any big players, like if Breece Hall or Debo or Hurts goes down to an injury, maybe I'm back in the conversation, which I don't want because that means that it's your pick. So we'll see how it goes. And the other question James also asked, who do you think makes the playoffs because the division's so tight? We've answered that, I think, the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll kind of hold off on answering that one.
We'll keep it in the back of our minds. Maybe wait a few weeks. We've already answered that a bunch, and even kind of talked about it throughout power rankings and matchup previews. But the other question that he asked us, which I think is a really good one, is which team's loss or win this week you think is going to have the biggest impact moving forward? Off the bat, immediately, Evan versus Zach, both of them. They're going to play each other 2 more times this year, but for either team to have a shot at the playoffs, they needed to win this one. Or not have a shot, but like to get the leg up for the playoffs, they needed this one. Evan wins a close one. Zach loses it. Could be if Zach misses the playoffs. You look back, you say, hey, I lost to Evan by 1. If I, did something different here or had a better outcome,
I think this is really every matchup besides you and Matt, because I think you're both not making it. and besides Cherry Jasmus, because I think Jasmus is kind of a lock, and I think Cherry's not going to make it. But yeah, me versus Steve to tie up, make us both 3-2. James getting the big upset over Trevor, I think that really keeps him in the conversation for the playoffs and could hurt Trevor later on. I think that's a game, if you look at it in the beginning of the year, you kind of circle it like, we think Trevor's going to win this one. James probably had that as a loss going in, got the big upset. And I even think this Griff beating Ethan, I think with our division all being kind of at like 3-2, I think Ethan falling a game behind now, and more importantly, Griff going to 4-1, having the 2-game lead. I think his schedule is going to get tough in these upcoming weeks when he starts facing the like Trevor. I think he has Jasmus coming up soon too, but him having that 2-game lead now, if he could just kind of hold like even with all these other teams in his division, getting that 1 seed could be huge for him.
Absolutely, yeah. Who asked our next question?
The next one, Evan asked a few. He said, who are our, we didn't talk about this, but who are our preseason favorite for champ, and has it changed?
So my preseason favorite was Trevor.
As was mine.
And I think the obvious answer to say who I think it is now, Ryan, is Jasmus.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I still think Trevor would be my favorite to win the championship. I think
he has the deepest team in the league.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys on my team where it's like I could see them starting for anyone else's team. They're on his bench, but for a good reason.
Yeah, thinking about when it comes down to like bye weeks and stuff, I think he's going to kind of separate, make a big push to be one of those top teams, and just when it comes playoff time, I don't know. Jasmus, like I've kind of said, could be just like 2 injuries away from really struggling. I think 2 injuries away, Trevor could still be competitive. So I think I still have Trevor as the favorite. Jasmus is obviously right there, and I think if you ask anybody in the league, those are the 2 favorites right now.
Absolutely.
And then he also asked, who are we thinking is like kind of been most affected by injuries this year? And then he said to not name Trevor.
Okay, so I can't name Trevor. I'm immediately looking at you. Again, fuck. To make sure that's good. Yeah, guys, we actually don't have this clipped or anything. It's just kind of stuck in the cushions. So, but yes, I think you've had quite a few. I don't have your team pull up in front of me, which I probably should have done. But Michael Thomas being out a lot does not help. If you want to go through your injuries real quick, be my guest.
Swift missed the past 2 weeks.
That's a big one.
Kittle missed the kind of beginning of the season. Dak's obviously been hurt. And then now, like, Burke's on IR. Wandale, who was a rookie, hasn't played. And Robinson, who my other rookie was, just started to play.
I'd even say you're more injured than Trevor.
Yeah, I think it's kind of iffy. I haven't been, like, great. Knox missed a week, too. Like, people have been here or there. I wouldn't say I've been completely battered, like, previous seasons, where you'd look at my team and I'd have 7 of my starters on IR. But, yeah, it has been tough. I think if we're talking about who it is affecting most, I think I'm looking at, for one, Ethan. Olave hurt. Dotson hurt. Julio's missed time. Pat F hurt. Obviously the big one, Javonte with the ACL, missing a lot of the rest of the season.
Yeah.
I think that's been a pretty big injury. And I also think another one that it's affected a lot has been Zach. Dobbins finally came back, but he's still kind of like, feel like he's limited-ish. He's playing like 40 to 50% of snaps. Missed the first 2 weeks. Obviously, Keenan Allen's missed a large portion of the time, who's a big contributor to his team. Bateman, who I think is normally a starter, has missed time with injury. Pitch just missed a week, who would be his normal starter. So I think and Mike Evans missed a week. Not injury, but a suspension. I think those guys kind of they play a big role on his team, so I think missing him is also a big hurt for his team so far.
I can definitely see that, yeah. And lastly, I think we'll finish. Trevor has a couple questions. It's a question and a statement. I also thought of a question, so I'll say that after this. But Trevor actually has a question directed specifically to you.
Mm-hmm.
It is pretty much, what are you going to do for the rest of your day? Are you planning on selling assets, maybe looking more to next season, or are you going to be like a buyer, go for the playoffs, make that push?
I think this year's kind of interesting for me. I don't think I'm one of the top teams, but I think I am good enough to compete and make the playoffs. I obviously do have a good amount of picks coming up in this upcoming draft, so including my own. So if I do worse, kind of helps my draft pick, and I think it's kind of been looking towards next year. I've kind of been waiting to try to see how I kind of start out. Haven't looked great, but I am 3-2. I think we add 3 more weeks. If I lose my next 3 matchups and I'm sitting at 3-5, could definitely be in a spot to sell. I think if I kind of go like 500, 2-1 type thing, and I'm 5-3 at that, 5-3 at that moment, I might opt into buying. I don't really know who I'd necessarily sell at the moment. Like, who are my older guys? I've kind of thought about the option of selling Kittle, but who really knows with that one, just because I have Goddard, another good option. If a team needs a tight end, maybe I could do that. Maybe Michael Thomas, obviously. He's been hurt, so hard to sell someone when he's hurt, but he's like kind of like an aging guy who could, when healthy, provide like a big help to any of the wide receiver rooms. I don't know if I'd sell Saquon or Swift right now. Maybe if things go really bad, I'd think about it. Would have to be for the right price. Could also definitely see myself buying, like, adding a receiver to this room, giving up maybe one of my first next year for someone I think could help this year and also kind of hold around in the future. So, I don't know. I think kind of see 2 weeks, 3 weeks. See what I'm doing then, see how the division's looking, and decide then.
All right. And the statement Trevor has is that he thinks he will win the split division.
I kind of agree.
I can agree with that.
I think it's him or Griff. I think Griff having the lead helps a lot. I think just those bye weeks, like a Jefferson bye, will hurt Griff. Josh Allen bye, Mark Andrews bye. Don't know if they overlap at all, but Matt, I think the big thing about Trevor too, he got lucky with the draw. Got Matt on his schedule twice, so he should have 2 free wins coming up, which could easily be him catching up to Griff if Griff has a tougher opponent. I think it's kind of going to be a race between him and Griff right now, if I had to guess. I could see him winning it. I think it'll be close. I kind of agree with this statement.
I can agree with both you and Trevor. And my question that I thought of before the segment. So, we're 5 weeks into the season. So far, who do you think had the best rookie draft from this year?
That's that one's kind of tough. I think
tough.
I need to just re-look at the board.
Off the top of my head, if I have Kenneth Walker still, or even just because I took him, he's going to probably get a bigger role. Looks pretty good. I could argue me with Breece Hall, but then you look at my other picks like Christian Watson, who hasn't looked great, and John Metke, who has cancer, and Tyquan Thornton's on the IR, and Matt Corral, who's done for the year, and Velus Jones, who's on the Bears.
Matt Corral.
I did say Matt Corral, who's out for the year.
I think the 3 players or teams that immediately came to my head, first was James.
Yeah, Damien Pierce looks really good. Dobbs.
Drake London looked good. Dobbs has looked really good. Yeah, Pickens has looked really good too. So I think he's probably the favorite right now. Did he have anyone else? He also had Jelani Woods, who has had some good games. Other name I thought of early was Ethan. Ethan got Olave, who has looked really strong. He also
Dotson.
got Dotson, who was looking good, and Alec Pierce, who has had some really good flashes. Shakir, after, hasn't really shown anything, but it's a third-round pick. And then I also thought of Griff. Garrett Wilson showed some good weeks, then had some Williams, we obviously haven't seen yet, but outside of that, I think those were his only picks. So I think James is the front runner right now.
Yeah.
Just kind of hitting through all the levels, first round, second round, third round. And if we look at his team, he's starting 3 rookie receivers and competing.
Yeah.
So
usually that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think those are my 3 most favorites right now. Obviously, Ethan's have got hit with injuries, but yeah, I think James is the front runner right now.
All right.
And then I do have one question for you.
Okay.
You had the big win.
Big win.
What do you kind of see as the outlook on this team? I think you are pretty deep at running back right now. You have a lot of options. Are you trying to ride those out, or are you trying to maybe capitalize with a good running back coming in, maybe selling them for their different players, get some picks? Are you thinking, hey, this is my time to compete? Are you going to buy? Or are you just going to kind of ride it out, see what happens?
I'm in a very weird spot, I will say that, because my team isn't great, and I'll be the first to admit it, but you have my pick.
Yeah.
So, obviously, I just want to gift you a top 6 pick, or maybe I say, hey, the odds that you give my pick back, slim to none, without me having to give up, Breece Hall, which I'm probably not going to do. I will have to see how the next 2 to 3 weeks play out, because I have Ethan, which if I get a win here, I boost the confidence. I have the shit bowl against Matt, and then maybe the following week, I think I play actually you. So if I come out of this 2-1, 3-0, maybe I consider buying. I do have a lot of future picks, along with 6 thirds this year, which are just basically $1 scratch offs. And I do have a lot of depth at running back, like you said. Obviously, guys like Mostert, Singletary, some of the older guys, they're available. Anyone can send me an offer. I'm not asking for you guys to take them or anyone to take them. I'm saying if the price is right, I'm more than keen on moving them. Definitely bolstering the receiver core is going to be a big play for not only the rest of the year, but the offseason, moving into the draft and stuff. Rondale looked really good last Sunday against the Eagles, so I have high hopes here that maybe I find that pick looks worth it.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot, off of camera and stuff about your team too. It's just your team doesn't feel like they can compete and win a championship right now. But I do have your pick, so it's hard to completely blow it up. But you are also RB dominant. They usually don't have the longest shelf lives. Sell high on the guys. If you wait, they could look amazing, and you could be like, why did I sell them? They could also get hurt, lose a ton of their value. I think it's a tough spot to be in where you're sitting right now. Got a lot of options you could go. I think it will, will be interesting to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I guess the outlook is I'm probably not going to do anything too big for the next couple of weeks just to see how everything plays out.
Way more towards that deadline-ish time.
Yeah, exactly. If I all of a sudden I'm going into week if I'm going into week 9, 4-4, maybe I'm like, hey, maybe this could be something. Maybe I'll go out and spend on a receiver to get me through the push, or a tight end, something like that. But we'll have to see. I wasn't expecting to make the playoffs, and like I said earlier in the show, I just want to see improvement with my team.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you're coming in, I always think back to the first team to ever really blow up, which was Zach. He started off the year, felt like the same old Zach was there, struggling to break 100 and stuff. But then as the year went on, the younger guys got more involved. He was doing consistently better and winning games. That's the only thing I really want to look forward to, is just improvement through the year. Show me something good for next year.
Mm-hmm. Understandable. All right, well, that's going to be the end of this episode.
All right.
And then we'll see you next week.
Next week for week 7. All All right, good
Good episode.
episode.